Thank you, Josh. All right. AI. Okay, welcome, Ben. So my name is Mike Marino. I am the current chair, and Daryl Hansen's trying to call me. So a little distracted. Daryl Hansen's our first guy on the slot. So yesterday we talked about MKP USA, what's going on behind the curtains and all the cool stuff they're doing and try to get more men into circle, as well as building stronger I groups. And so today it's really about growing I groups. So we have some men here that have some experience starting new groups and growing groups. As well as talking about you can't really grow a group unless you have good leadership. And then we also invited some men from the societies. And okay, thank you, George. All right, just saw a little brief note from it. So Daryl's not making it, and Daryl, no, sorry, someone else will be taking in for him. So we also have a 40th anniversary coming up for MKP, and I'd like to hand that over to the guy that was supposed to replace Daryl. Where is he? George. There you are. George is, and I've never met George before. I was going to introduce Daryl. I had a whole script in my head because I've known Daryl for a long time. So George, I don't really know you well, so if you could introduce yourself, that would be greatly appreciated. And also tell us a little bit about the 40th anniversary that's coming up.
Thanks, Mike. So my name's George Durrani. I'm currently in Tucson. I was initiated in 1992 in San Diego and helped build the Arizona Center. I am now leader emeritus for about 7 years. I served as the chairman for the Mankind Project International. I was the last chairman when it was still unified between all the regions and all the centers around the world. And then we blew it up in 2011. I'm now on the board of MKP USA again, and I'm working on the committee with Daryl to create and deliver the 40th anniversary celebration, which will happen in September of this year here in Tucson, because this is the home of Rich Tosi now. And we have discovered that it's going to be much better for him to do it locally than to have him travel somewhere else. I'm also part of a small group of men who are working on identifying the final group of the men who will be inducted into what we call now the Founders Circle of Honor, to which I was inducted 10 years ago. There will be probably 5 or 6 men who will be inducted at the 40th anniversary into that Founders Circle. So I'm here basically to tell you a little bit about that. Boyson knows about as much as I do at this point. So if I miss something, Boyson, I'd appreciate you stepping in. Right now, this is the way it looks. We're going to do one big gala event on Saturday night, September the 27th, that will begin in the evening around 5 p.m. with a reception, and then we'll move into a dinner. It'll be a sit-down dinner. There will be a few introductory remarks and comments and speeches. We will induct the 5 men or 6 men who will be part of the Circle of Honor. By the way, Tyrone, who is here, has also served on that committee. And then there'll be a keynote speech and maybe some entertainment. The prior day, Friday evening, there will be a reception and gathering for all the men that arrive on Friday. And there may be some things happening on Saturday morning, so men can gather into groups or constituencies. We're not really sure what Saturday is going to look like yet. One thing I know is going to happen, there will be a room of artifacts that will contain some of the really important things that belong to the project, dating back to 40 years ago when they had the very first training in Hema Woods. I know the rock from the original wall at Hema Woods will be there, our sacred rock. I know exactly where it is. There'll be a few other pieces like that. And then there'll be a wall to honor all of the men who we know who have passed. the warrior wall of deceased warriors. The other thing that I expect will happen is Rich Tosi is in the final edit of his biography. Well, it was a biography. It's now an autobiography. He's basically writing it himself with Shar. And that book is supposed to be available for sale and for his signature. So we're going to carve out an hour or two, probably on Saturday, for a meet and greet. So men who are interested can sit with him and have his book signing, etc. So those are the key pieces. What we want everybody to do, obviously, is to reserve the date, get it on your calendars, spread the word to all the men and all the I groups around the country, um, invite them to come. It is a big deal. We gather typically every 5 years. The last time we've gathered like this in person was in 2010 in Louisville, where we hosted what we called the 25-25. It was a celebration of the prior 25 years, and then it was a vision forward to what the next 25 would look like. And what's really interesting to me, having been there, now being a part of this, is that some of the things that we visioned then have actually gained traction and are coming into fruition. And so I know that when we create our future by putting it into language and then putting it into action, the shit happens. This project is notoriously good at doing that. So that's the big picture. I hope you men come. It would be wonderful to have you. We expect to have 250 people seated in the big ballroom. It's open to anyone, men, women, children. You don't have to even be a member of the Mankind Project to come. So if you want to bring a guest and introduce them to the work, it would be an incredible way to do that. I'm actually planning on having a couple of my friends come and check out what I've been up to for 30 some odd years now. So that's the news, and I'm open to questions, and if there's specific things I can't answer, I'll direct you to Boyson and also to yeah, so the date is September the 27th. I'm not good at putting things in the chat. September 27th, Tucson, Arizona. Arrive on the 26th, which is Friday, so you can be a part of the Friday evening event and then be part of everything on Saturday and then be part of the gala on Saturday evening. Most men, I expect, will leave on Sunday, although some men are planning on staying. I believe we've scheduled a new warrior training in Arizona for the Southwest region for the weekend following that. So if you want to stay and staff, that would be a really cool way to do that. And then I believe that Desert Wisdom is planning to have a weekend in Prescott 2 weekends after that. So that's what I've got. Any questions that I can answer at this time for you?
So, yeah, real quick, you mentioned, is Bill Kopp going to be there as well?
Bill
One of the other
Kauth will
founders?
also be there. Yeah, both of the living co-founders will be there. I expect at least a dozen, maybe more, of the men who've been inducted previously into the Circle of Honor to be there. There will be a lot of men who've been around the project for 20, 30 years who are planning on coming. So there'll be a deep dive into the history of the project.
Thank you, George. Any questions? And yes, this is still evolving.
Yeah, and people are coming, men are coming from around the world. So it's not just for the USA. It is intended to welcome any man who has experienced the Mankind Project anywhere in the world.
Thank you. All right, any questions in Boyson? Do you have anything you want to add?
Our intention, if George didn't say this already, is to have registration up by the end of this month so that there'll actually be a way to get your official name on the books. And I'll throw a link in the chat. If you're intending to be there, we have the save the date form that's open just to pitch your name and say, yeah, I'm planning on coming. There's going to be one of me or four of me coming for the date. Right now, that list is over 95 people, and don't even have registration open.
Thank you. Any questions? Anthony, is that your hand up or are you just scratching your ear?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm good.
Okay, all right, okay. All right, so thank you, appreciate your time, George, and, yeah, if you have any questions, reach out to George, and, hopefully we'll have a lot of men that show up in person, because, you know, not often we, gather together as MKP brothers across the country.
Yeah,
Oh,
I just
doesn't
put my
happen
email
very
in the
often.
chat. If anybody has other questions, feel free to email me anytime.
Okay, thank you, George. Okay, so let's shift the energy a little bit. Tyrone, welcome back. Having those Zoom issues, I heard. And so, as we talked about yesterday, and one of the visions is having more men in circles. And that can feel like a daunting task for some men, particularly, wow, you know, how do I get all these people, especially if it's a local group in areas that don't have any MKP presence. So, for example, you know, I live in Hendersonville, and there's a group trying to start in Greenville, and it can be a challenge. And so I've got some men here that have experience starting new groups. And this is a way to, you know, ask them some questions, and they can share some successes that they've had and some challenges that they have. And so I'm going to spotlight, I've got Kelly, I've got men from across the country, so it's just not a regional thing. So I'm going to spotlight Kelly from Oregon, Eugene, right? And then let's see, who else we got here? Josh Walshman. Where's Josh? All right, Josh Walshman's from Chicago and has a lot of experience. And I'm going to spotlight him. All right, and then Bruce Knoll, where are you, Bruce?
I'm on
There
here
you
somewhere,
are.
Michael.
Yeah, you are. You're in one of my boxes. All right, and I'd like to bring Boyson on there. Boyson, there's something they call the incubator thing that I don't know what that's about. So, all right, can you get everybody? So this is just going to be a panel, and first question is, what are some success factors in starting a new group? I'd like to you guys to chime in and let us know what works for you and what may not work.
I could kick it off. The two new groups that I'm most familiar with that are most recent in my experience are I groups that came out of the last two pits I led. And the beautiful thing, a couple things I think really contributed to having that work. One, I am pretty certain, I'd have to check the data, over half the men in the pit were already sitting in circles. And so what they did was out of their weekend and built on the connection that we deepened and the skills that we fostered in the pit, they decided to create a new iGroup. And both of them in the past year have decided to meet monthly and online. So that they're inclusive of men across the country from around from all the places where men connected on the weekends. And so the starting a new group there is kind of a different mode than it used to be. We used to, you know, have a weekend here in Chicago, and we got a nice dense area, and we had the center, and we'd try to get men connected to each other in a pit. And then, great, you're an iGroup now. And what I'm finding is launching new groups is actually fostered by men already sitting in circles. The skills and the experience they bring to that circle are varied. And then the other thing that we've done as a facilitation team coming out of those pits is have various members of the facilitation team visit kind of week by week, month by month, so that they have a soft launch. And one's been going great for a year and sustained, and the other is let's see, about 3 months in and showing no signs. They're actually increasing their meeting frequency because they wanted to see more of each other. So that's one way that new groups are definitely coming online, literally and figuratively, here in Chicago.
Thanks,
you.
Josh. I'm going to speak briefly to the group formation that I am most proud of. Another man and I, the other man's name is Jim Drews, have been hosting an open men's circle online. Well, it was in person, but online since COVID. And out of that group, we started an I group of men who wanted to take the work deeper and experience what it was about. So Jim and I created this group of uninitiated men. There were 7 of them, and we just took them through some of the, it was sort of like, it started out as a mini pit. We told them that they would be doing the work and Jim and I would just be there observing and helping them through. So we gradually just exposed these men to the work, and they stepped up in a wonderful way. 7 men. And since that time, let's see, that's been going for 2.5 years. Since that time, every one of them have gone on to do an NWTA, and they are leading the thing by themselves now. I stepped away from that one and formed another one. Jim is still present in that group, and he said it's just amazing the work these men do and the depth they get into. And these are men who just had a desire to go deeper and connect with their hearts and with other men. And it's just a beautiful thing. And they're going strong, and they're in a place now that they're inviting more men to come into their group. So that's one of the experiences that I've had. It's sort of unfolded
Kelly.
in a really wonderful way.
All right,
Thanks,
Bruce
Kelly.
or
Thanks,
Boykin?
Josh. Michael, okay if I go ahead?
Go for it, Bruce.
Yeah, so thank you. And just want to let the rest of the men on this call know it's a privilege for me to be here with you. There's a great deal of humility in this work, at least from my approach. And I guess I'm in somewhat of a unique position, or at least was this month. The end of this month, I'll complete basically a 5-year project that was funded by one of our brothers here in the Greater Carolinas area. And in that project, actually 2 of the primary focuses in this project were retention and also inviting new men. So in terms of the retention, we created what was called a guide broker program. I authored this with Rick Morgenstern. It's not supported by MKP, but we have used it here in the Greater Carolinas area. And basically what that was is that a man would be paid an incredibly small stipend to basically mentor men for 6 months to a year after they came out of their NWTA. As an area steward, multiple years ago in Florida, I was made aware of a statistic that we were retaining somewhere between 12 and 18% of the men who went through an NWTA. And it that statistic fell on the donor as something that we could improve upon. So we created the guide program. We started it here in the Greater Carolinas area. Actually started it right in the beginning of COVID, but instead of being stopped, we went back to the 2018 and 2019 NWTAs and began to mentor the men inside that with a goal of retention of 33%. What we realized over the last 5 years is that we could elevate retention to 55% is what we experienced. And many of those men who are still in the project are now leading circles and facilitating, and they're active in the Mankind Project. That didn't mean that they were all members. That would have been another step, and we're still working on that. And I'm quite proud that we had an opportunity to do that. The second piece to this was bringing new men. And since October of 2020 is when we held our first open online men's group. We've had several hundred men go through it, thanks to Boyson and a lot of the stuff that the guys nationally did to draw attention to these open men's groups. And since that time, we've put 38 men through NWTAs here in the Greater Carolinas area and others, because it wasn't just about the Greater Carolinas area. It was more about a man doing men's work. So we've had guys be all over the country, go to NWTAs all over the country. And I want to cite one very quick story. There's a man who lived here in Asheville. He attended prior to going through his NWTA meetings here, and then subsequently moved for a new job out to San Antonio, Texas. I called him on occasion over the next couple of years, and my final call to him was him picking up the phone and saying, "I can't believe you called me on the worst day of my life." And I said, "Oh my gosh, Daniel, how long are you going to put up with this?" And the next month he was at Land of My Grandfathers. And he's just sent me an email the other day indicating that he's now on his third staffing, and he is 13 months sober. And he says he attributes that in part to me. And I sent him a note back saying, "You had everything you need inside. All you had to do was go let it out." And that's what the Mankind Project did for him. So we have men that are serving in stewardship councils. We have men that are creating new circles. We have men that are facilitating, and it's all because men reached out to other men and had a conversation with them. And I think, in my judgment, that conversation done well is what will grow the project. And with that, I'm complete.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I'll talk about the iGroup Incubator. Hi, I'm Boyson Hodgson. I'll talk about the iGroup Incubator, which is a thing that isn't running right now. And there's plans on restarting it. And imagine we're a pretty dispersed community in New England. I'm in the western part of Massachusetts. And the way that we set up the iGroup Incubator, you have to find the right space. It's got to be a pretty good size space. You have to find the right group of core leadership. So that's 4 or 5 guys who are going to be really committed. And then we didn't create new iGroups off of guys coming out of the New Warrior Training Adventure and going through primary integration. We brought all of those men into a big group. So similar, Asheville does some of this kind of stuff too, where we would circle up and we would be over 20 men in circle. There would be some guys there who had been around a long time, who had done primary integration. There were some guys who would be brand new. And we would take pieces and parts from primary integration training, and we would teach little bits. And we would grow men through a growth process, right? So you got that. Okay, you're going to lead this round. Here's the pieces. Cool. We're going to move you on. Now, in 6 months, when we do our next New Warrior Training Adventure, there's going to be a new crew of guys coming in. You're going to be teaching them how to do the processes. And then we had enough space that we had spin-off areas available so that a group of guys who, this was the like deep work room. Deep work room's down there on the left. These guys out here are going to be facilitating you learning new processes from the primary integration training and other stuff that we would just help guys get grounded into the work. So what that did for Mankind Project New England is it spun off a number of groups. Spun off a group in Hartford, spun off the group that I started with Robert Zeller in West Springfield, Massachusetts. We're now in Holyoke, Massachusetts. And because of the intentionality of holding and teaching as we do with new men, we then created our first open men's group in 2009, where it wasn't an I group. It was an open men's group that we promoted and invited men into. We ran it twice a month. First and third was the open men's group. Second and fourth was I group. Second and fourth was for New Warrior Brothers. First and third was for any man, and it was promoted. And we worked that group so that that intentionality of being a teaching space and a leadership space and creating a big container. So we had 26 guys in our circle 4 weeks ago. We are regularly between 12 and 20 men every week in our circle. And those guys go to the New Warrior Training Adventure. And then we have plans. We're spinning up a group back in Greenfield. We're going to restart a Greenfield, Massachusetts group. We're going to start a Springfield group. We're going to start a Pittsfield, Massachusetts group out of the men who have been holding these spaces.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is you guys, like with Kelly talked about it, he started basically just something more on an organic basis. And then Josh talked about, something spinning off from a pit. And then Bruce talked about more of the connections. And then Boyson, you talked about the teaching pieces, getting them really like more I call buy-in on actually, I got to teach new men, I better learn this. So how do you determine whether a guy moves from like an open group format to more or an I group format? Is that more organic, or is there a formula that works best for men? Or I'm just curious.
Michael, I'll go ahead and speak to it. I think all of it works. I think all of it works when somebody's passionate about being in the middle of it. For example, I look at the 4 men that you've brought to attention here. They're here because they care about this work and they care about other men. And it's not just, at some place I'll show up on a Friday, and everybody has their own way. Everybody says, well, not everybody, but there are men who say, I want to be in group with men that's been through an NWTA. There are men who say, I want to be in groups with men who don't know anything about NWTA, but I want to learn. I will show up. So in my judgment, all of that works. The difficult part that I have experienced is finding out what works for who, when. And that takes a lot of experimentation, and it takes a lot of rejection. You have to be able to handle it. And it's actually one of the things that's helped me personally. And one of the things that I always mention to men coming into this project is we're not perfect. We're not for everybody. But if you want to find out about yourself and then take it out into the world, this is a great place to begin.
Thank you, Bruce.
Here, here. One way that we've handled it, the other dimension that I'm excited about is just my own I group, where we host once a month an open men's group that is, supported by MKP USA and the whole machinery of inquiries, and we've got 2 currently, and they get funneled into one online once a month and one in person. That's my group once a month. I just counted 7 of the 13 men in my I group were sitting in our circle in some capacity before their NWTA. And of those men, 5 of them are sitting in one of these other I groups that came off of their weekend. And so men are having deeper and broader options, and the continuity, one of the big questions, and we have each of these options that you're seeing here has some answer to the question, how do we provide the kind of support, the skill that men need to feel like the group is moving and doing something effective? And so having men who are really new and brand new and uninitiated and connecting with, old heads like me in a group is around since 2007. has created a really rich. My I group is thriving right now. The energy's high. We never have less than 6 or 7 men. We
Yeah.
as many as 12 men who are coming to Open Men's Group are asking if they can come to the regular format, and we have a process for doing that and holding that in a good way. And so when I got a call from Scott Hellam out in the western suburbs, who's in his golden years and whose group is down to about 5, and they're beautiful men and they want to build their group, I said, hey, why don't you think about becoming an Open Men's Group once a month? And all these guys in the western burbs who would never spend an hour and a half driving into the city, or men who don't want to do an online one, can come to your circle and you could start that. And
Yes.
Scott's actually going to come sit in at our next Open Men's Group to kind of shadow and catch the vibe. And I think that might be a way that as iGroup coordinators, we can really support our groups that have dwindling numbers or want to grow when they have a passion for welcoming men. So I don't know. I said a bunch of stuff there. I hope some of it landed in the space we're talking about.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Mike, to answer your question, when we were sitting in that open circle, we knew that it was the men that were there that was driving the situation. They were the men who decided that they wanted to go deeper and connect on a much deeper level with men. And to that piece, I would say, and I'm sure you are all aware, that men all over are finding value in this work, and more so than ever, men are coming to the project and wanting to connect with men and wanting to be in a safe space and wanting to share and hear and listen and be seen. On our open circle, we have a man from Hong Kong, we had a man from Ghana, Saskatchewan, people from all over, and they're finding value in this work and they want to be heard and they want to connect. And I find that the men will let us know when they're ready to go into an iGroup and do deeper work.
Thank you, Kelly.
In the hero's
Yeah,
journey kind of, I'm sorry, Mike, in the hero's journey
ahead,
kind
go
of
ahead.
thing, one of the things that I recognize in the Open Men's Group, because we'll see a guy come once, right? And then not. And then 6 months later, he'll come back. There's this, we're operating at that cross the threshold, refusing the call place in the hero's journey. They know there's something happening. The red phone's ringing in their lives, and maybe they're ready to pick it up, and maybe they're not quite ready to pick it up. But we see a lot of men refusing the call. But what Kelly just said is on point. Like, they know, and then it's just tapping them on the shoulder for whatever's next for them. There's no forcing, there's no anything. It's just, yeah, you're ready. Let's go.
Thank you. I want to say one thing, and then I see Dan Baldwin's hand is raised. So, we spun off from the Asheville group in Hendersonville because men didn't want to do the 45-minute drive, and now we're up to at least a dozen men. And I'm sitting in a circle, and I'm like, there's 4 of us that see the same therapist or have been seeing the same therapist, and so she's a very big advocate of MKP,
Wow.
and she just sends men down to our group. So building connections with local therapists is also a great way to another entry point. All right, Dan Baldwin, hands up.
Hi, Dan.
I'm going to talk about what we're doing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the community of Milwaukee. And, I really think from an iGroup birthing point of view, it really is a community endeavor that we're talking about local, unless you're talking about an iGroup, a virtual iGroup at the area level, which I would love to see a virtual intro to men's group as well as an iGroup at the area level for virtual. But in Milwaukee, we made a conscious effort to want to birth our men's groups. We noticed that we hadn't birthed one for 10 years, but we lost about 5 or 6 over the last 15 years. So a bunch of us got together and we said, we're going to do it. And it has to do with new brother engagement is a huge thing, is that we're going to engage those people and really look at our new brothers as the future of MKP, and we want to grow from our new brothers. So a bunch of us old timers got together with the new brothers coming off a weekend, and it was like 30% old timers and 60% new timers. And we started a culture that this is about growth. This is about inclusion. This is about invitation. This is about you guys being the future leaders. And we did kind of the sorting hat and the individual one-on-one nurturing of all the people that attended that group and got our person to the GRC or leader track or iGroup facilitation track or whatever it is, but or on our area stewardship council, which we had several that are currently right now in roles on our upcoming NWTAs. We created an environment of learning where they're not sitting back. It's always challenging them to facilitate or go to another training. So we're able to create the culture of energy and excitement. And then, so within 3 trainings, our second training, we added to that group and a couple of our other groups because they couldn't meet in another night. So they solidified some of the groups that we're in, and we got almost all new brothers to stabilize that group and fill in some of our other groups. Again, nurturing every single one and mentoring every single one. Not informal mentorship. It's just informal. Who's got that guy? You know, and we made sure everybody got gotten by somebody who's reaching out and having coffee or doing something with them. And then we just birthed our second group off of our last 3 weekends we did right now. Hugely powerful group. So our next step in the evolution here is this coming Tuesday, we are having the big ass iGroup meeting. And that is every Tuesday, first Tuesday of the month, all of these iGroups that we birthed that are already in this kind of like mentoring stage and actually coming into their power. We've all agreed to meet on the first Tuesday of the month and have a big meeting. What we're going to do is for the first half an hour, as people are showing up, we're going to do something fun, drumming, happy yoga, chanting, whatever we're going to do as people are showing up. And then we start and close the container. There will be an Ooh Shiny or a best practice right after the rounding ceremony in the large group, which will ask for people to share or review a best practice or bring something new or bring a topic to talk about that's relevant to the community. And then after that 30 minutes, we break up into our iGroups. I imagine at some point we're going to experiment with sometimes rotating and mixing up the iGroups, but generally we're going to start with breaking up into our iGroups. The plan is also, we do have an open men's group that meets on Wednesday of the month, the third Wednesday of the month. But we're going to make this also where probably that it will also be an open men's group. Men that show up will just have volunteers take them to an open men's group. So they'll see the large group and the energy and the playing and all that other stuff. And then they'll go to the special intro to men's group meeting that's uniquely for them. And after they do that a couple times, if there's one of our iGroups is willing to say, yeah, we'll take that guy over here now that he's been here a bunch of times as a guest while he's waiting to the weekend, we'll do that. So we're also going to open it up that on those Tuesdays, any old brothers that are not in iGroups currently right now, come on down. We'll find a place for you. We'll create something and bring a lot of our old timers back. So that's what we're doing in Milwaukee. I'm wondering if anybody here, did we show Boyson the open men's group page in mkpusa.org?
No, we haven't. We've been
Can
just
we
talking
do that
about
for a
growing
second?
groups.
Because somebody mentioned open men's groups and the once a month. So I thought maybe we could just throw this up there as far as
How are
they're
we
a
on
feeder.
time, Mike?
We're good. The 40th anniversary took a lot less time than I thought it would.
Cool. Then I will, hold on, I can share screen. If I can get out of it. There we go. There we go. So mkpusa.org, find a men's group. Wow, why is that taking, my system must be taxed here. That took a long time. Online men's group. So the national online men's group is represented here, the open men, and then all of these local open men's groups are represented on the page, where they are, when they are. This is mine, and the process that you go through for registering. So here's the whole thing that's supported. There's actually an intake process. So you fill out a form that puts you into a system, and then the system is managed in this case by Jeff Pringle, who reaches out to the man, has a conversation, introduces him to the ground rules, touched on this yesterday, kind of gets him acclimated to the group, and then provides information on where to go.
It does a lot more than that too. It puts them in the system.
Yeah.
So you can add them as a guest to your iGroup if you want to use them as a guest user. It also puts them in the system for inquiry prospect management. So enrollment people can reach out to them saying, hey, you signed up, but you never followed through with showing up to the men's group, still interested. Hey, we have an NWTA coming up, whatever you want to do from that. But what we want is, we do know that there's probably 100 iGroups that are doing open men's group stuff. They just haven't registered with us. And like Wisconsin's not up there. The Milwaukee one is not up there for our Wednesday group, though it's been around for a long time. It's in the registration system. We know we have about 20 or 30 that are in the registration, and we had a backlog and an IT problem, but that constraint will be coming through, and we'll probably be seeing 20 to 30 more men's groups showing up on there. My goal is to have an open men's group in every community that we can possibly have. And preferably in some communities two, or ones on different nights. And it's, as an iGroup coordinator, it's one of the things you can mention. Would you be willing? And they might say, well, we already do that. We're an open men's group. Well, consider having them so that, I get calls all the time. Where can I find an iGroup? And all I have is the iGroup search. So I don't know which ones are really good at taking new people. And even if I refer them to them, if they're gonna answer the call, because I refer a lot of people out there to places and they make the phone call and nobody returns the phone call. This is our active list of a man wants to connect and check us out. What group can we reliably send them to, where they get a little bit of an orientation, are going to be taken care of. We miss more men this way. We spend a lot of money advertising, marketing, word of mouth energy, putting it out there. And then when they say they're interested, we drop the ball about 65% of the time. So I'm encouraging us, let's not drop the ball. Let's get them into the system. Let's get them connected in an easy way that we know where the funnel goes. Where does this guy go? That's how we're going to burst some groups too. And then having more diverse groups. We'll put up there the men of color groups, the indigenous groups, the GBT groups that are open for open men's. This is open men's. And then we have a different place to birth focused men groups that are internal for already existing grads. I'm complete with that. Go team.
Thank you. So what do you do in areas that are I call dead zones? I don't think there was a group in Pittsburgh, or I know Bruce been working and trying to get something going in Charlotte. We had a group there. I mean, that's a big city with no iGroups. So how do we work areas like that?
Well, Mike, I'd like to respond to what we're doing here in the Greater Carolinas area. There were a couple of iGroups in Charlotte, and when COVID came around, they slowly disbanded. And we made attempts to reach out to our brothers who were in Charlotte. And Charlotte's a very transient area. It's a very difficult traffic system to get from south to north. So we tried a lot of different things. We tried inseminating iGroups in the north and the south, so they didn't have the travel problem. And then there was something else that came up that wouldn't allow us to do it. So here's what we have done. I've taken the tactic that if the gentlemen who were NWTA graduates have moved away, or whatever their reasoning was, that's their choice. But there are men coming through NWTAs. I love what Kelly said, that there are men out there that want to do the work that we're doing. And if I take that perspective and believe that there are men out there, and I start making telephone calls, and over the last 5 years, I've probably made, I don't know, 5 or 6,000 telephone calls to men who didn't know anything about us. We're starting to get men. So now we have guys who are in the Charlotte area that are interested, and they have begun to meet on an informal basis just to get to know each other. I've heard it said on this several times, we don't have to necessarily have an I group. We can have a men's group that meets for lunch or just get to know each other. My experience is that when that happens, those guys don't want to fall away from each other, and
Yep.
they want to continue to meet. That's when we can send them to trainings like the men's work. That's when we can send them to operations like Circle of Men. There is no end to it until we say there is an end to it. And in my judgment, as long as there are passionate men who want to tell the story about the value that they got from their weekend or from their experience in NWTA or from their experience in just being a part of a men's group, men will come. And we have men that are now, as I said, going to lunch, going to dinner. They're forming I groups, and we have also men that are living around the Charlotte area within an hour or two, myself included, who have gone to Charlotte and become traveling magicians or traveling kings, and help men understand how powerful and life-changing this work actually is. I'm complete.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for that, Bruce. And I see we've got a urgent question here from Michael Baldwin, but I did just want to chime in that, yeah, in my experience, attentiveness archetypically to lover is so critical that when we're beginning a group, men need to feel each other before we try to ram into warrior accountability and magician transformation. That really the bookends of sovereign blessing and acknowledgement and of lover connection and feeling, seeing and being seen. Those are the ones where men have enthusiasm for coming together. And when that is really attended to, then the circle over time naturally wants and requires some accountability to tighten up, and men are called to transformation. But if we bring a new group of men together and just try to run 4 rounds of an I group, even skillfully facilitated, I think that can miss that critical piece that you spoke to, Bruce. And I was really happy to hear that.
I
Thank
would
you. Any que-
like to take just a moment to speak to Josh's piece there. When we started that group that came from the Open Men's Circle, what we found was that the pieces, especially during the Open Men's Circle participation, we were doing 4 rounds, actually just checking in from 4 different archetypes. And we found that the men were a bit put off by the lover, warrior, magician, and king titles, that we dropped those and just started doing questions from those archetypes. And the men just loved that piece. So I would just recommend and say, be attentive to what the men want, because they will tell you what they want, right? Don't, as Josh said, try to force something down their throat. Just be open and aware and listen to the men, and they will tell you what they want. And I'm complete.
I see a question in the chat. Anybody want to take that one?
I can. When we're talking about initiated men as opposed to open men's groups should be registered, and we should be keeping an eye on who's leading them. And an area steward and or the area or the I group coordinator should know, are these people safe to be running and welcoming people? Because we've had situations where people had their own agenda, jumped into MKP, or are people that should not be the face of MKP because of their skill level. So at an area level, if it's an open men's group and it's our branding and it's our marketing that's on play and we're welcoming people from the outside, quality does matter. And you have, I encourage, you know, you don't have to go there and vet and do a hot seat necessarily, but you should keep an eye and know the guy and talk to the guy and decide, determine whether or not he needs some more help or some support and or that. On the other hand, you know, when we're talking about creating an I group, birthing an I group in a new area, um, you know, one, there is really no leader in an I group. We're trying to create a more flat, but we do know it does help to have a couple good seasoned experienced people helping out the birth and make sure it's done well. So if a man raises his hand and says, I want to try something in my area, I always want somebody there to help him and say, we're here to support you, cheer you on, and root you. I will do that personally if I have to zoom in. I'd like to create an army of magicians, or not an army, because, you know, a flock of magical helpers. Who's a magical helper in this room? Raise your hand. Who's willing to be a magical helper? That's what I'm talking about. Let's have a magical helper team that we can draw from and be there for these men and encourage men in your area. Go communicate. Anybody wants to start an I group up in so-and-so land, we're here to support you. And that's how we get there. And it's about support and not necessarily power and structure and leadership. It's about moving into the cause. And there's many ways to do that. I have a lot of ideas. If there's a new person who would like some support, I'd like to be there for them.
Thank you, Dan. I see Tyrone's hand up.
I have an add-on to that one. If Tyrone's got something different, if he's going to riff here, I'll wait.
No, it's different. So go ahead.
One thing that I've noticed is that that new groups need a glue guy or two, somebody who is excited, whose energy is up, and who is skilled at pulling together a WhatsApp group or a group text and is just going to go get their brothers.
Yep.
It does not work if every man is into it and passive. And so identifying that guy and helping him be seen for his contribution has mattered a lot. And also providing some guardrails when it might get a little heavy-handed. Those are the two dynamics that I've experienced recently. And so that men have experienced men outside the container they can connect to as they're creating their space. But a glue guy or two with a little bit of a type A is somebody that I look for and foster and support.
Thank you, Josh.
So,
Tyrone.
so my question is actually in connection to Michael Baldwin's question in terms of I group diversity. So can you all talk to what has worked for you or has not worked for you in terms of bringing diverse people into your I groups, and what do those groups look like now?
Cool. Risky. I'll go.
Go ahead, Boysen.
My group still is way too white for being where we are, and way too not racially and ethnically diverse for where we are. And so what has worked, what is working with us in terms of nurturing connection and building connections is making sure that there's backstops for the men who are in our groups who don't look like me. So it's introducing guys to other guys who I know in the project, drawing connections outside of our area, outside of our group, so that there's a recognition that, hey, there's something else out here. Connecting them with buy-in for groups in MKP where they are, so that there's an opportunity for them to stretch across different places. And then not hiding from the fact that our group looks the way it looks. Having that be present in the room and not pretending it's something else.
Yeah, Boysen, I want to piggyback on that and hopefully add something. I love the question, both from Michael Baldwin and from Tyrone. And over the last 5 years, and I want to say right up front that I raised my hand just like Boyson did, where we continue to be a white men's organization. But the question is, I think for me, what I'm hearing is, what do I do about that? And what I do about it, I like Boyson, I refer men out who don't want to come back to the group. How do I know they don't want to come back to the group? Well, sometimes they'll just not show up. Sometimes they may have a conversation with me offside and say, hey, look, this really isn't what I'm looking for. And it gives me an opportunity to communicate with them honestly. I don't have the experience of being a man of color. I don't have the experience of being a gay man, but I do have many brothers who do have those experiences, and I want these men to be able to speak to them.
Yep.
And I don't make any bones about it. They are welcome in this group, no matter when it is. One thing I would like to see is I would like to see some way of having feedback from those men who go to other groups, whether it be GBTQ or the Brotherhood or anything like that, that they there and that they got received. Because for me, I have guys that I still make telephone calls to who are men of color, for example, who are over the road drivers in our different cities every night. They don't always have a place to go to. And I want to make sure that if nothing else, they have a place to go to. And I'll be honest with them, if I have the expertise, I'll help them. If I don't have the expertise, I'll send them to people who do have the expertise. But I would really like to know that the connection was made.
Thank you, Bruce. See Michael Baldwin's hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to just bring up also the one element is that, yeah, we had a training recently in Southern California where there was only one man of color. And at the homecoming, he said, I'm noticing that I'm the only one that looks like me. And it saddened me so much. And yet I see a lot of times there's a matter of, how shall I say, sort of lip service sometimes in certain I groups where there might be hidden and repressed and denied judgments underneath things that are preventing men from being so actively involved and knowing that I am not alone. I know that's how I react best, is understanding I am not alone when I came into this work. And I feel that's one thing that resonates for a lot of men. So when we split off into different constituencies, if you will, it's very easy just to stay with that same mindset and any judgments that go along with it. Whereas the inclusivity and really getting a much broader understanding and interaction between people of different cultures and beliefs and backgrounds and everything else is so vitally important, not only to these circles, but I feel our whole country and world as a whole.
Thank you, Michael. Goran, your hand's up.
Thank you. So I've been with NKP about 15 years. I myself am an immigrant, so I have some experience with inclusivity question, personal experience. I have a housemate who is a young black guy, African-American in Atlanta here, 30 years old, and I invited him to my I group, and now he comes with me. We drive together. So in my experience, that's how to get diversity, invite your brothers from your life, right? I also know a woman whose father was killed on a street by a white policeman, black woman. I dated her in civil rights movement protests on a street. And said, and in her family, she said she very much hated, they very much hated white men. So why are you dating me? She says, I don't want to harbor hate in my heart. And it brought me to tears, I haven't lived that experience because I come from the other continent, but I was really moved by that. Her father died for desegregation. and I understand from the history of US, racism was bad and then segregation was the second bad thing. And so I talked to one African-American man when we were staffing together about separate African-American NWTA and say, why is that? He says, well, some Black people feel uncomfortable around white men because of the history. We feel more comfortable around our own kind. I'm like, wow, that's exactly what white supremacists were justifying segregation with that argument. We feel more comfortable around our own kind. And then I'm thinking, if somebody doesn't feel comfortable about people of a different kind, so they need a separate NWTA, how in the world are they going to feel comfortable in the I group that's also mixed? So in my view, to honor the life of my ex-girlfriend's father who died for desegregation, for God's sake, let's stop segregating NWTA. Don't bring segregation back. That really kind of scares me. Let's just work on our discomforts and be all together. To me, when I heard about segregating and NWTA, is like that's just going in the wrong direction. That's just my personal opinion from these conversations and learning about the history of this country.
Thank you, Glenn. Are you complete?
I'm complete.
All right. Thank you for your share. Yeah, and then Tyrone.
I'd like to defer to Tyrone first, then come back to me.
Goran, thank you for that. I would just like to offer as a possible thought for Goran and for anyone else who perhaps shares that same view, that by men of color or any other group choosing to have NWTAs that specialize or focus on them, perhaps visit that group and have more than just your one friend conversation. Because the collective thought is about safety in being able to do your work at a much deeper level, because there are men who understand your historical background. So the invitation is to explore more why these men don't feel safe in a traditional NWTA, or perhaps don't feel safe in a traditional I group. The more that those men do feel safe in their understanding of what we do in doing the work, in my opinion, will eventually give them the strength to step into a space where they may feel that there are microaggressions or blatant racist comments directed at them. So it's an opportunity for them for the seed to grow, so that when it is ready to flower, there's space for it to do that. I'm in with that.
Thank you, Tyrone.
Yeah, if those of you don't know, Tyrone is one of the co-leads for the intercultural competency and belonging leads for MKP. And this is coming a hot issue item around how to have interculturally competent circles and create safety of differences, not only including race, includes so many different things, okay? I just want to share with you, Ben, that there's a resource you can go to. You can go to the Intercultural Competency Leads. We have an advisory council, and we're strengthening the intercultural advocate and belonging, or intercultural. We'll be probably changing the name to intercultural competence and belonging area that will be putting time into having more resources and more understanding about the complexity of this issue, and encourage all of you to practice some of the skills that we talked about in MKP. We have some wonderful skills and values, and we're going to be creating things to consider. And around this topic, one of the things is the both and. When you say we're going in a wrong direction, it creates a binary conversation of right versus wrong instead of a spectrum of needs that can be addressed. And to just consider that around here, when we go one direction, some people are hurting in another direction. And the idea is to be more inclusive with their ideas and even our solutions around these, and instead of necessarily resisting, seeking to understand and try on the different perspectives is another important piece. And being able to speak the other person's perspectives, even if you can validate your perspective, if you can validate the other person's perspective too on why it's important and speak to why they think it's important, is another great skill to use in this. And more importantly, the emphasis for you men are, as iGroup coordinators and iGroup people, if you run into a problem and you need support, don't let the conflict continue. Get the support you need. We'll find people that will come and help you. I'm going to lower my hand. I do want to come back to another subject that was put onto the chat list that I would bring back, but let's stay with this until this is done.
Thank you. Barry.
Yeah, thank you guys for this. It's really important because I know that my gay brothers are in need of this work for sure. I feel culture dragging people away from just authentic living, because I feel like my gay brothers need to adhere to some kind of a marketed brand. They need to be snappy. They need to be the gay best friend. They need to be draggy. They need to whatever. And I don't feel a lot of authenticity in that, what about the gay soccer player who, it just, the guy just wants to be himself. So I really feel like some of my best healing that I've done in both this group and also, other men's circles that I've been in have been, kind of my opportunity to stand up and come out, but I've had to come out. And that in itself is a fearful thing, in the group. And so,
Yes.
So I see the benefit of having a GBTQ or, a specific thing. However, one of the most meaningful kind of conversations that really blew my mind in the NWTA was the frank conversation about sex on Sunday morning. I would think maybe if, in a, segmented effort, there might be a whole period of time instead devoted towards, speaking your truth to the other. So, if you could have, a cohort of white men who are trained and, and a really great facilitator come in on Sunday morning and let the groups speak their trauma to each other, and kind of hear the perspective, or, or black and white men, or whatever the kind of, oppressor, and usually it's a white man, it's straight white men, forget, cis white straight men, forget about it, the universal villain. And allow people with the group behind them to, speak their trauma, and then to hear it too, because part of my best learning was hearing, how many straight men have been, victimized by, gay men trying to get them drunk and suck their dick, whatever, that there's real reason why gay men are perceived as perpetrators, and my message to my brothers is I'm not, but I've got to hear and understand those stories. So I think, I definitely see the value of, specific training adventures, but I would think a part of that would be speaking your truth to the other.
Thank you.
And hearing,
Thank you, Barry.
by the way, and hearing.
Thank you, Barry. You complete? All right, back to Dan.
Mine's a switch in
You need
subject to something else that's on the
Yeah.
line there. Boyson, is your continuation?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to bring forward the idea. So a word that I've heard used here is segregation. And I want to bring forward, and hello, February. Hello, Black History Month. I want to bring forward the idea that we're talking about differentials in power. And if, as Bruce pointed out, like this is still a mostly white dudes organization. And frankly, it's still a cisgendered heterosexual white dudes organization, mostly. And if the organization were saying, no, black men have to go over there to do that, gay men have to go over there to do that, that's segregation. That's exclusivity. That's creating spaces, right? We're talking about empowered men creating spaces to welcome brothers with less friction around some of the cultural stuff so that these men can come into a space where they feel safe enough to do the powerful deep work that they want to do on their way into this broader, larger organization. Like I hear it being called like then they get stuck in small groups. That's not what I see happening out there in the Mankind Project. But I support men's free will to create the kind of containers as entryways into this, right? That's not segregation, which is a power play by a dominant group to force others in a non-dominant group into spaces. That's not what's happening. I'm complete.
Hey, Mike, could we unpin the panel? We're just having such a live discussion with so many contributors. I'm hoping that my reaction shots are edifying, but I'd really love to see all the men.
All right, I'll unpin you guys.
Thanks.
Let's figure out how to do that. Okay. Dan's hands up, Kelly's hands up. I'm not sure who's first.
Well, Dan is a message change, and mine is just something to support this discussion here. So,
Okay. Go ahead,
Mike,
Kelly.
I just want to speak to that piece that you led on the iGroup Summit a few months ago about having, and I know I'm going to get this wrong, having men of differing physical abilities, inviting them into iGroups. Do you remember that piece? That for me was incredibly informative, and it very much helped me to understand and how to relate to men of different abilities. And I think more pieces like that around this topic would be incredibly helpful. So if perhaps you can, or someone can put that recording for that piece out to make it available for more men to watch, because I thought it was incredibly informative. I am complete.
Whoops, I'm muted. Bruce, you have more to add on this?
Yeah, just very quickly, 2 comments. What the Mankind Project taught me was empowering the man to make a choice for himself. So I don't think it's up to me to force him into any group, but it is up to me as a member of this organization to ask him what he wants. That's number 1. And then number 2 is I would fall short if I didn't state this now, and I was afraid I wouldn't get it in. I just want to thank the men in our organization and on this call, Dan and Boysen, not on the call, Scotty and Tripp and a few other guys who have worked tirelessly to help this organization improve, to move. And my encouragement is, having been here for 11 years, I'm also taking the stance that it's not an immediate result. We're testing, we're trying, we're showing up, we're doing what we can do, we're handling and learning about conflict. And I don't expect this to be over tomorrow, but my commitment is to stay involved and give it time and invite men to have their own experience. And with that, I'm complete.
Thank you. All right, let's switch to topics. Dan, I think you're going to answer a question in the chat.
Yep, I'm answering questions about open men's circles and open I groups and open circles, okay? So it's been an evolutionary change over the years, and we have some legacy language, but I want to clarify the language that we need to be using now, my judgment, and I think that are agreed on, and that there might be places in the project that we need to change the language because we missed an oversight on it. But I do want to share with you that open men's group is what we mean when somebody is coming off the street to a group and being introduced to something new. Generally, we do not want men coming off the streets into an iGroup format. We want it to be registered, that we get them into the system, and that we refer to these things as open men's groups. We do encourage iGroups that at any iGroup, they don't have to declare themselves an open iGroup or an open circle, that any group that allows it can, a member of that group can invite their friend or somebody that they know that they vetted. They deem it's okay. They've prepared them to come to their circle. They know what's going to be happening in that circle. They're going to be with them in that circle, and they're going to be with them after that circle. So that's really what we're talking about, is that isn't just an iGroup. Any iGroup can do that. Sometimes we get into open iGroups where they're open to any new brothers coming in, okay? So that can be a descriptor within here. Hey, is your group open to new people coming, new brothers coming? But please, let's try to go to the language. An open men's circle is a group that takes the time for on that night or all the time to welcome people in off the streets, knows how to do that well, alters what they do for somebody just coming off the street, and then there's iGroups that allow guests to come, but they must be guests of a member in the group. Any questions around that, or any reactions from Boyson or Mike on did I get that wrong?
Sounds good to me.
I got one, Dan, just a point of clarification. Your description maps directly onto how I've been holding it in my brain, so that's a big relief and very welcome. And it maps onto how my iGroup lives. I do have this question about affinity groups that might be open to uninitiated men, if there are any of those that you're aware of, and what would the language around those be?
Right on. So we're going to have those really clarified out there soon. We're going to be creating a part of the open men's groups, the affinity groups that are really for non-graduated men off the street. And then there are some groups in the beginning here that in the empowerment and the formation that they're just starting out, dude. Anybody that's in both open and initiated men, please come. And because there's no place for them, those affinity people, to go to right now, they're mixing in with the open men's groups, and they kind of quasi in between. It's 50% grads that are showing up for a place and 50% non-grads. We're hoping to move towards a model where both can show up and then they break out in the breakout rooms. One breakout room, this is on the virtual side of things. Some go into the breakout room with somebody who's never been there before, and the graduates go over here, and then eventually we can birth some iGroups that are welcoming more men of that, like the GBTQ, and still maintain the open men's group for GBTQ. Robert, when he gets to talking at his session, he'll talk more about what they're doing in GBTQ land. The POMA group is a little bit more of this both and in between, but that'll be more clarified up on MKP Connect very soon.
All right. Thank you, Dan. All right. I'm going to everybody just take a deep breath, and we're going to transition to our next piece. Tyrone, I think you're supposed to do the introduction. Where's Tyrone?
Okay, I'm here.
There you go.
Excuse me as I'm battling a cold. So, 2018 May of 2018, I did my New Warrior Training Adventure experience. And I went to an I group that had a lot of experienced guys. They were amazing. They had been around for several years. Maybe I want to say 10 to 15 years these guys had been together. I felt totally inadequate in that I group, felt very small. And although they tried desperately to help me, to make me feel welcomed, I just didn't understand what it meant to be a king in an I group, to hold that space, to what it meant to facilitate. And then I saw this thing on MKP Connect, IGFT, IGLST. Which one should I take? When should I take it? And so I say all that because our next two people who are going to talk are, I think it was the first real next level training that I took after I did my NWTA and then PIT. I learned what it meant to hold that space, to be part of a I group. So I'm excited to bring our current I group chair, Mike, and our good pal up to talk about what it means to hold that space.
David,
David, go ahead, take it away.
So, yeah, so a little tidbit. Tyrone and I were in the same class.
Same class.
We were in the same class. And David, I think, was one of the instructors. And so I'd like to introduce David. How long have you been teaching this class on leading I groups? And let's get him spotlighted.
Maybe, I think I've done more than 10 of them, I guess.
Okay.
Started, I took the class myself maybe 3 years before COVID hit. It was sort of a prescient decision, actually. I saw retirement coming up and I knew I'd be traveling a bit, spending a fair amount of time still in Maryland and some in Florida. And I was looking for a way to stay connected, both to the group I was in, as well as just stay connected with men. I had been connected with men ever since October 2000, Buffalo Gap and so forth. And over that time, I've met other faces that I see on the screen through this process. So it's been a pleasure, a joy, and a great addition to my life. So I think, Mike, you and I want to just talk a little bit about what works, what we've seen working.
Yeah, so
I groups
what I love, what I love about this class, David, is I get to see other men and how they lead from across the country. And, you know, I'm sure you picked up on some characteristics because we talked about growing groups just now. And one of the important things, and I think Josh talked about it, having a couple of guys with glue to actually lead. So, David, what are some characteristics that you see of good leadership in a group?
And so I think not only is it a question of how do you pick a leader, you know, where do they come from? Do they just, do you select one man and leads all the time? Do you rotate this? But clearly things that you're looking for, whoever and however you pick a leader, is about, number one, it's preparation, sort of thinking about the evening before it comes up, whether it's sending a note out to guys to remind them, whether it's, you know, setting a tone for the evening, a theme, bringing something new, something that many men can participate in. All of those are some of the characteristics that I think create the right kind of environment that's inspiring. I still have my Circle of Men book from CALF that the Greater Washington group used to give that out when we graduated PITS like 20 years ago, and I still dig into that book for some ideas to bring to my I group. Another thing, of course, as a leader, I think being aware of what's going on, reading the room, knowing where men are men there? Is there some tension? Or something needs to be addressed? I think those are some of the characteristics that you and I would agree, Mike, are what's needed, and whoever's leads the group, however it's chosen.
Yeah, and sometimes I got to throw my agenda out the window because especially if there's like a newer man in the group and, you know, he's not participating, it's always good just to check in, or I heard something and it might land on a man in a negative way, be able to check in and not be afraid of it, because, you know, if I'm in a really safe circle, I don't really grow. But if I'm in a unsafe circle, you know, I'm going to retreat back. And so kind of that tension you talk about, I find that very healthy. So being able to read the room, I think, is really important. There will be some others that you've seen.
Well, as you said, certainly flexibility. That's key to it. That wonderful quote about being heard is as close to love as one can possibly have. And listening, that's part of reading the room. But how do you encourage that? How do you encourage? There are men who've got things they want to say, and they may not be in a space where they want to listen. How can we inspire them to do that? Obviously, modeling it is one way. Having a conversation about it sometime. If you get a sense that there's a lot of, I'm telling you what's on my mind, but I'm not really demonstrating I'm present for the rest of you. How can I create that as a leader? That's the question.
Thank you, David. I'm also running a little short on time. Anybody have any questions? And then, David, what would be some other areas too, like being able to model, showing, you know, like, yeah, we'll have a check-in and I'm going to model it first versus having another person go, bringing in creative ideas, keep the energy going. And those are some other characters. Does anybody have any questions for David or myself about the training, or what other skills that you might see?
This is Josh here. The question: when's the next one? When's the next one happening? And with this influx of new energy and new men in my I group and men whose pit I taught, but who are looking for reps, I really have found that a brilliant pit is no substitution for reps. And the thing that I love about the IGLST design is, you know, men get reps and feedback, and so I just got really excited because I realized I'm gonna go pitch the hell out of this about 4 guys in my I group when we're done here. So yeah, where can we find it, and when's next?
Great question. You can find it in the trainings and programs, just like you can find in any pit or any gathering or any event. And you got one coming up in mid-March. So in 2 months, or a month and a half. And we only have them about once a year, maybe once or twice a year. So they don't happen that often. Who else's hands up?
Barry's got a hand.
Barry.
Yep. You guys are laying out such a variety of like trainings and stuff here. And as kind of a newcomer, I've, you know, done the New Warrior training, I've done the men's group, and, you know, I think that you kind of taught us in that men's group introduction a lot of the circle stuff, and yet I don't know where to go next. Do you have a document anywhere that's like the sequence of what you should go, the leadership track?
But no, that's a great question. And that's why I have lots of mentors in there. It really depends on what you want. Or where do you want your growth to be? I mean, do you want your growth to be, you know, facilitation, you know, being the magician round, or do you want your growth on NWTAs, or do you want it to be leadership? So it really depends on where you want to get your bang, where you want to go next step. So no, there really isn't a document. That's why I have mentors that know, and I'm you know, you can always call me, and I'll try to get you in the right direction. I don't know, David, do you know the document?
No, I can't put my finger on it right now. I'm sure we can. I don't think there's anything out there that's real formal, but I would say for sure, Barry, if what you're looking for is I want to be able to contribute and help my I group grow, facilitation is really important to master, and also preparing yourself to be able to lead. You know, we've had some amazing guys who like came right off of their NWTA. They've been in an I group once or twice. They came to the IGLST and they were all ready to lead. They were very comfortable. So that's yeah, way to go, boys. And a thing such as that could be created. Let's do that.
I mean, I've had, you know, of course, years in recovery meetings and various things, and so, you know, my kind of pain point now is the lack of availability or kind of awareness of this work just out in the world. And I think the top of the funnel needs a lot of work. And that's kind of where I'd like to be, is, you know, introducing people to men's work and, you know, and inspiring them to go deeper. You know, so I'd love to do an open group and maybe be a part of an I group so that I have that fellowship of, you know, initiated brothers as well, because I definitely, you know, felt like that fell apart from my last group, and that makes me feel kind of out in the wind. But I just want to make sure that I'm doing it responsibly, you know, and with, you know, with kind of the right level of training and awareness. And I mean, anyone can go out and start a group. I know it's 100 on Meetup, right? But I want to, you know. And anyway, thank you for that. And I'll speak to Marino as well, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. And you did the NWTA recently, right, Barry?
I did October, Oxford.
Yeah, awesome.
Fractal
Yeah,
Green.
and so, yeah, so the first thing for me is to do a pit, and I can get like the broad base of skills. So we actually recommend doing a pit before doing a training like this, or IGFT. So pit's always a great first starter. And you just get the basic stuff, and then you can move on from there. What I want to go to leadership.
I'm enrolled in an online one, and it's a 10-week thing. I wonder if I should just try and find a weekend one instead, and just kind of
whatever works for you. That's why we now have a lot more options. You can do it, you know, weekend, or you can do it online, whatever's convenient for you. They're both good.
I'll add, I've had the pleasure, I've been invited to iGroups to have a talk about, you know, we're an older iGroup, and we feel we're kind of stagnant, we're a little stale. What can we do to kind of juice our iGroup? What can we do to, you know, re-excite ourselves? And many groups have tried something like the following: annually, and we'd encourage it annually, have a ceremony, a recommitment ceremony, where people talk about what have they gotten out of the iGroup in the past year. What are they looking for? What have they not gotten? What needs to be different about the way the group operates? And recommit to attending, participating, and maybe growing through additional training that can help everybody in the group. So that's one idea that many groups have come up with, that they find kind of stimulates and gets them going again. I think partly, Mike, you and I were hoping people might have some additional suggestions that they could throw out that they've found valuable in their own iGroup. And we could look for that right now if anybody has some they want to share.
How about an embracing change policy where every 2 years an iGroup splits?
Actually, our group did that for a while. We said we will dissolve every year, and if we decide to reform, we will. And there was another reason for that, Barry, and I don't know whether it's sort of related. When new men joined a group, there was always this sense of, you know, the new, the old, the familiar, the unfamiliar. We used to do this pretty regularly. If a new man joined a group, we literally disbanded the group. We said, this is the end of the old group. Sometimes we even renamed the group, and we decided those who want to continue, we reform and we commit to that group. And we do that so that the new man or men feel like we're on more of an equal footing than they're joining, you know, a group of guys.
And I'm thinking of kind of like a cell division split, like all you old timers pick team A, team B, go start new groups and bring in new blood.
If I may, one of the things that has worked here in the Asheville community quite successfully over the past probably 2 years is that on every once a quarter or every 5th week, they do a scramble, and iGroups they disband for that night, and they sit with each other, so they get to know men that they haven't met before. Asheville is a little bit of a unique situation. You might find anywhere from 50 to 70 men standing in circle on a Monday night, and then they break up into iGroups, so it's a little bit easier. But there are other situations that on every 5th week, you can agree to change and just see what it's like to sit one else, to see what it's like to sit in a new set of agreements, to see what it's like in another iGroup. So just one possibility of many.
Nice. Thanks, Bruce. I don't know how many of you have been involved in iGroups that periodically have a social event. One of the groups that I'm in does that. Like once, I think it's when there's a fifth Monday of the month, whatever it might be, just get together, have a meal together, go bowling, whatever. Other groups, and I remember I was in a group pre-MKP. We did a weekend somewhere, a retreat. We went someplace, a couple of nights out in the woods, out by a lake, out on a boat. It was wonderful. So it's other ways that help kind of build the coherence and and connection. I see Josh has a hand up. Mike, did you want to add something first?
Yeah, and just real quick on that, Michael Baldwin brought up a really good thing. I can't remember where it was yesterday, but his group got too social in the iGroup, and so what they did is on like the fifth, whatever Monday of the month, they had a social, which brought all that, basically shifted the energy of the group. So they actually do men's work there. They know they have a social, throughout the year, and it's not an iGroup. So Josh, your hands up.
Yeah, one option for groups looking to reform and recommit that I have had a lot of success with, and my group's about to embark on, is a gold and shadow process. It's not a hot seat. We're not judging your fitness to be in the group, but the way we've structured it is a reflection. So for each man, he states what he knows of his shadow, and then each member of the group says, the shadow that I see in you, that I see in myself. And then conversely for the gold, give us a minute, tell us what you know of your gold, and then the gold that I see in you, that I see in myself. And it weaves connection and that reflection. And then I was just chatting with Brian Thomas, who's one of my dear friends and mentors, and he said, you want to get spicy? Have a third round, what I'd have you look at, because we're with each other week in and week out in a way that most of us don't have anyone else in our lives, and we are tracking each other deeply. Things that are blind to me or that I'm avoiding or I've gotten stale for me, a brother can bring alive for me. What I'd have you look at is your pattern of blah, blah, blah. So those are all ways that I think reforming and rejuicing a container can be really effective.
Thanks, Josh. Yes, agreed. Any other thoughts? Things that have worked in your group? Things that have worked in your
One thing we do in our group, I'm not sure who started this, but in our group, we have this daisy chain of blessing other men. And so, like if I'm leading a group, I'll bless a man. I'll bless him, and then he blesses another man until each man gives a blessing, and then the king is the last person to receive a blessing. And it's really powerful when, men are like blessed by another man, and it's really good to build that connection and that's worked well. Okay, anybody else before we go to a break? All right, so up next, we're going to do a break till 50 minutes past the hour. Up next, we're going to hear from the variety of societies that we have at MKP, and then we're going to head into missions. So please take a little break, show up at 10 minutes prior to the hour, and we'll get started again. So thank you.
That's messed up. So now they just get half of my speech. They don't even get the whole speech. So they're going to look at that and say, well, what the hell is he talking about?
I'm sorry, I got to restart.
That's all right. Mike, I love you, man. If you was here with me, I'd pick you up. I'd put your head on my shoulder and say, I love you. It's okay, brother. I'm good with it. Because that's how I am, man. And just like that, you see how this is here? This is what elders do. Elders hold space, hold containers. And it's between us, the G&R guys and myself, that on weekends we do what we do. So that all those guys with the big egos that say that they're leaders and they're this and they're that can actually do the fucking work that they're doing so that they could do their work. And if they start messing up, we could just tap them on the back and say, maybe it might be better if you slow down a little bit, or You know, did you see that guy's eyes when you said what you said? Or did you see his body reaction? Or what about the new guy over there? You see how that new guy over there is shining? He's got a lot going on. You should give him some more stuff to do. And
All
then
right.
Tyrone tells me, stop talking, stop talking. Am I saying
Right.
too much?
Right. Yeah.
Am I saying
No,
too
you're
much?
good. You're good. We got a few more to go.
All right.
So thank you.
So, but there's
Hey,
two
Shokri.
things. There's two things I want to throw on the table.
Okay.
I'm going to South Dakota in March to honor Dallas Chief Eagle and his people, the Lakota people, for the work that they've done with us. And then I'm going back there in October because I want to bring some elders up there to be with the elder Lakota men to create healing. Hear my words, gentlemen. It's not about politics. It's not about who's on this side, who's on that side, because if we get stuck on that, then we ain't going to get shit done. It's about being able to come down the middle. Come down the middle and remember why you first came here. I'm done.
Thank you, Hey Shokri. All right, let's go to Mickey Young. Mickey Young, you ready to talk about the Brotherhood?
I think so.
There you go. All right. We got Tyrone. Tyrone said he supports you too. So go for
All
it.
right. Appreciate it. So hi everybody. My name is Mickey Young. I am co-society lead of the Brotherhood and MKP that supports that empowers men of color, basically. The reason why I wasn't prepared is I didn't know that I was gonna lead today. So that's why I'm not prepared. But some important dates that we have. So we have a Brotherhood Summit that's happening the weekend of Juneteenth, which is June 20th through the 27th, 2025. And that's for the community. And we're also accepting uninitiated men. And yeah, we're focusing on men of color. Another thing that we have going on this year is the Brotherhood NWTA, which is August the 21st through the 24th of 2025. What's cool about this is that basically we have full leader Lavoyo, Mervin from South Africa, Stefan McKenzie, and our first ally co-leader, which is Richard Torres. Our I group meets every Monday at 6 p.m. Central. This last week, we had 19 men show up. 19 men show up on our I group call. Also, on that weekend, we will have our very own Mike Bain and Larry Hurley, and also Tyrone Marsh holding the below. And is there anything else? And I also want to drop our resource page. And our resource page has all of the information about NWTAs, ways that you can support, donations, and things of that nature. And again, my apologies for not being prepared.
That's okay. So Mickey, I'm going to add one thing. Can I add one thing to that, Mickey? All right. So the Metacolor weekend in August is in Zirconia, North Carolina, which is 20 minutes from where I am sitting right now. And if you're going to staff that, make sure you get in shape because it is a hilly site.
Okay.
And if you need a couch, let me know. I'm 20 minutes away. All right. Any questions?
Can I say one more thing to that? And we're accepting allies on the weekend.
I signed up to staff, and I hope I would love to get chosen. But yes, I know there's some requirements on how many. So
yeah. So yeah. Thank you.
I have one thing, Mike.
Dan, yeah, go ahead.
Yep. Hey, I'm the targeted giving champion of MKP. This month is Brotherhood donation month. So and the communication will be going out to all the areas on Monday, or the broadcast list. And please, ask the hat, ask people to give this month to the Brotherhood. It really helps them with all sorts of ways of putting on the weekends of their gatherings they do. Let's empower them and give them the resources they need. Thanks a lot, Mickey, for all you do, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Josh, your hand's up. If it can be quick.
Yeah, super quick. Is the Monday open to uninitiated men?
Yes, it is.
Boom, sold. Thanks.
Thank you.
Also, Josh,
All right.
we're working on a open circle, and that should be happening in like the next month. So that's another avenue that we have.
Awesome. Thank you, Mickey. Thank you for your time. And thank you for showing up last minute. I think it was Jermaine, and then I think it got passed to you. So appreciate you doing this. Okay. Let's see. Who am I missing? Young Warriors. Dan, you want to speak a little bit about Young Warriors? And then we'll go to Kevin Harbert.
Right on. So I'm posting, we don't have a Young Warriors Council right now, but we do have, I'm holding space for one to be eventually created, and a space for anybody who wants to support Young Warriors. There's information. We have a monthly meeting that you can go to, and we send that out also, announcements to different places. So please, if you know a young man, bring him there. We do have a Young Warrior training coming up in May, already staffed by some brilliant people, including some of the brilliant people in this room. That's also growing our momentum. You will be getting an email out there. Also, we're looking to birth some young warrior I groups, a young gentleman by the name of Ian Heffernan. You'll see a lot more of him coming up. But he is going to be holding space for collecting basically young warriors 35 and under that are graduates, and say, hey, let's get together and start something, and start with a virtual I group, and let's see where it goes from there. Hopefully eventually we'll get a virtual open men's group as well out of that, and eventually we'll get a council again. So it's starting to rebirth. It got kind of shut down during COVID and the post-COVID stuff, and here's a little ember of fire. Please, any little stick you can bring to that fire, any gasoline you can throw at that fire, please do. And let's support that weekend. More importantly, if you got men in your area that are young, that are graduates, no better way to start something in your own backyard by sending them to staff. And there's resources there to help a man if they need to get there to that staff. And even more important, spread the word. If you got a young man that wants to do this weekend, and do it with a bunch of young men, for young men, they do a little bit of slight variation on some of the process to make it a little bit more applicable for young men, but it's basically the same thing. Please get the word out, get your enrollment people consider, because then when they come back, they're connected with young men, and they can help back in your area growing young men in your own backyard. So I'm in with that.
Thank you. Thank you. And that is 35 and under, right, Dan?
They've raised it up to 40.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Did we get that right, Dan? 40?
Got me, man. Got me. I'm not, whatever it is, it is. I'll trust you all
Okay.
more than me.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you. And let's go to Kevin Harbor.
Okay,
Head of
guys.
Mission Circle.
Yeah, I'm mission chair. I also run the gold mining mission circle and all of the stuff that's associated with that. We've got some information to bring to you later about how you might bring more mission work into iGroups. But I want to do a little quick research here, just to confirm my projections and my prejudices. So for you guys in the iGroups that you attend, how much of the time are you doing shadow work? Is it 50% or more that's doing shadow work? Give a hand raise if that's the case. Okay. How many are doing mission work for the men who are there 50% or more of the time? Not seeing hands. Okay, so this is what we're talking about within Mission Circle and within mission work in general. On the weekend, in the context piece, we talk about getting familiar with our shadows, working with them, and then going out to live missions of service. And we talk about that 3 times on the weekend. And a lot of times in our I groups, we get stuck in doing shadow work, if not all of the time, most of the time. And the idea is, if we spent more time balancing that out, we'd get more of what we want in our lives. And that's exactly what mission focused groups are headed towards, and exactly the kind of stuff that we want to be able to share with you. And frankly, that's been a difficult shift to accomplish for a lot of established I groups that are just used to doing shadow work. Please know that I am not against doing shadow work. I believe that it is necessary, and it's necessary at some point to move on to do mission work and get into what Dan talks about, moving from the me work to the we work to the world work, that expands the effect of what we're doing with ourselves and our lives and our energies and our time in our groups. So that's what we want to be able to bring more of to the project. We want to be able to bring more of it to individual groups, and really live the lives of service. So thanks.
Thank you, Kevin. And Kevin, Kevin's going to talk a little bit more, a little bit later, about some of the additional things that resources we have to help I groups do more mission work in their groups. All right, any questions for Kevin? All right, so I invited Phil Beverly, and I don't see him. And I think Tyrone sent him a text. So
Yes, I
Phil
sent him a
is
text. I sent him a text, and he sends his condolences. He is busy right now.
Okay, so Phil is our new USLB chair. That circle is for all the certified men, co-leaders and leaders. And so he recently took over that position. And I do know that they have a gathering at the Land of My Grandfathers at the end of this month. That's all I know is going on in that circle. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to breakout rooms so you get to hang out with some men you've never met before. And we're going to do that for 20 minutes. And basically just to check in, name, where you're from, what you're feeling, and just kind of what you heard, what's going on with you, and just get to know some of the men in here. Guys are all leaving. You hear a lot of dings. So hopefully a couple of you guys can stick around and meet some other men. So I'm going to create a breakout room. I'm going to pause the recording. All right. Where's Kevin Harbour? There you are, Kevin. So Kevin and I, we've been buddies for the last 6 months. Kevin's kind of, he and Randy Marks. Randy, he like knocks on the door. He's like, well, Mike, we don't do a lot of mission in groups. And I'm like, you're right. I mean, my local group did some mission work just on one meeting. And so I was easily convinced that we need to do more mission work. And so Randy, with the help of Kevin Harbour, have updated our meeting guide and included a lot of mission work. So Kevin, you want to speak more about that, or maybe we can, I think it should be uploaded in MKP Connect.
It is, and Randy shared the presentation that you guys used in iGroup Council here a while back, and I was going to go through that real quick and reference it, and then open up for questions too. So,
all right, floor is yours.
Let's do that. All right, can you guys see this one?
Yep.
All right. So the idea behind bringing mission into iGroups is more a matter of not revolutionizing, but more just shifting focus. And so we'll talk about some potential shifts that can go on and some other ways to kickstart mission-oriented work for iGroups. Let's just go down. This is only 5 slides. So there's from former MKP chair, purpose of an iGroup is to support men in living their mission. Okay, so how do we do that? There are various ways that you can do it. Any and all of these things. You can start with the check-in and the lover round of each man can state his mission. You can bring it into the king round. You can make it part of the magician round, or include a specific mission segment as a round within the round kind of thing. One of the things that we do in the gold mining circle regularly is that in the warrior round, we do mission-oriented stretches. And if there's any question about the stretch that's being made, the question gets asked, all right, how does that relate to your mission? So that's another way yet to do it. Let's go to the next slide. You can do a mission night that is a specific one-off. There's a whole mission process library that is available that can be drawn on. I don't want to flood you with data on that, but we can get you, whatever information you need if there are specific things to do. And then periodic mission-oriented retreats are another option. Some guys talked about doing an annual recommit. Well, what if you did an annual recommit to your mission as a group, and starting off with remembering your mission, which is a big deal that just plainly doesn't happen. How many guys do you know that get a month out from their NWTA and they can't remember their mission, but they're absolutely clear on what it is that they did for their carpet work during the NWTA? Well, by all rights, we should be as clear on what our mission is months out as we were on what our carpet work is, and that's not necessarily the case. So this shift that I was talking about is the thing that we want to focus on. There are changes to the iGroup handbook that Mike was talking about, that changes in definitions, highlighting different mission segments in different rounds. And there's a discussion of the gold mining format that we use. Gold mining is our mission-oriented online group that's been going now for 5 years. That's both a national group that draws all the way from the East Coast to Hawaii, and oftentimes guys in Asia join us because when we meet on Thursday nights, it's Friday morning for them. So we get some Asia attendees. Also outside of MKP USA, we have a multi-gender group that's run by one of the guys on the East Coast. And he draws a lot from Europe and the US. And then we have a European group that has been going here for a year now, that has, well, I have counted up to a dozen different countries in attendance when we have our European meetings. So pretty cool stuff. Let's go to the next one. The PIT manual was updated to include more information about mission. So again, a resource that can be used for the PIT and the iGroup manual for iGroup operations. I'll add one thing to this. If you want to do a jump start, we have something called the Gold Mining Adventure that is a mission-oriented weekend that we've done 5 times on the West Coast. We have one coming up June 13th to the 15th in West Virginia at Claymont Court. So at this point, we have a host. Mid-Atlantic is going to be the host for that. We've got a number of guys in the Annapolis area that are really all in for this, trying to get the Metro guys and the Philly guys involved in that also. So if you want to have an opportunity to spend a weekend working on an expanding mission, and really going forward and being able to get things to bring back to iGroups, or even spinning off and creating a new iGroup that's focused on mission. Going to be a lot of tools and opportunity. We did that last year in Santa Cruz Mountains. We had 35 guys there in the redwoods of Santa Cruz Mountains working on mission together. It was an amazing event. I won't hit you with the video from that, but wonderful testimonials about the difference that's made in men's lives to be able to have that mission focus. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share and go to questions.
Can you put the link in the chat? Somebody asked for that. Also, Kevin,
link for what?
I have that presentation.
Oh, yeah, I'll do that at the break.
Okay. So here's my question. So as was stated earlier, there's just seems to be a culture work because we had men raise their hand. How do we start shifting the culture where more men are doing more mission work in their local iGroups? How does that, versus just talk about, how do we shift that culture?
You know, that's
like a culture
question, and I've been asking that for 10 years. And so you're not alone in asking that kind of question. And the shadow work can be really seductive and sexy. And we can get over-identified with shadow work and wounds. The question for me in that is, can we be as identified with our gold and our missions and what gifts we bring to life as we are with the shadows and the wounds? So there's really there's a philosophical shift that takes place in that. How many of us have been in iGroups with men that have done the same shadow piece again and again and again, not just for years, but maybe for decades? Do you ever call a man out on that? You know, about how does that relate to your mission? Do you even remember your mission? You know, and how are you going to take the grist, the whatever it is that has come out of that for you and use it as a gift to bring into the world? Because isn't that what we're supposed to do with our shadows? We find a way to turn our shadows into gifts that we can bring into the world through our mission. And I've been in groups in the past where some guy was really wallowing in it, and you know, and I asked, you know, what's the gift in this for you? And he looked at me like I had three heads. You know, what do you mean, what's the gift in this for me? You know, this just sucks. Yes, it does. You know, and how does that enable you to come into the world in a unique way and bring your gifts? You know, sometimes to break the chain, you got to use the baseball bat like that. And other times it's just a matter of setting the framework of, here's what this round is about. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. So anybody else have any questions for Kevin? Or comments?
Like a brief one. But I would love for Scott to go first because I've been talking a lot and haven't heard from Scott.
I just wanted to find out if there's a link or a way I can get a copy of those slides.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and put that in the. I'll have to go off screen to go back and get the link, but I'll put that on during the break so that you can get it, Scott.
Okay.
Thank you.
Josh?
Yeah, you know, man, we've come a long way. You know, the thing that I do want you to know, thanks to Randy's taser and the stalwart work of many others in the pit rewrite, you know, we front load an entire day basically around mission. The second day is pretty much totally about connecting and updating your mission. And the insight that powered that in part was a a co-leader, NWTA co-leader, mentor of mine, who I will not name, said, the mission process on the weekend is not about your mission at all. Little Boy's Deepest Needs is really set up to provide something to flip so guts can go fast. That the Little Boy's Deepest Needs isn't the genesis for all men, or even most men by design, for what my mission of service is, or that North Star of mission in my life. And so the visualizations that we do now in the wake of integrating a man's weekend experience, I'm proud to say that every man that finishes the pit that I've led in the last 3 years absolutely knows his mission and shadow mission. I'm embarrassed to say that back in my own I group, it's not ritualized into our culture. And I think, at least for me, one of the things I bump into, and what I'm curious about, men have bridged this. For me, my mission is so broadly aspirational that it's hard for me to keep it grounded to making a bridge into kind of week in, week out, or for this year kind of projects and things to keep me on track. So ways of bridging that are something I'm super curious about.
So you bring up a great point, Josh, because, in MKP, historically, we've taught mission equals vision plus action, right? I mean, that's the formula that we get taught. And the typical response for that is we get something that's very visionary, that's very broad, like what you talked about. But when it comes to the action, we spend a few minutes talking about what might be done in the next few days, but it really doesn't break down that vision into what are we going to do in our lives, today, this week, this month, this year, this 5 years, to be able to get to the vision. And so there are other models that we've been using in the gold mining circle and such, that go from all the way around, what is my life's purpose, to what's the vision, what does that look like, to what is the big hairy goal that I'm going to work on for the next 3 to 5 years, to what do I do about that this quarter, to what do I do about that this week, down to what are the habits, my daily habits that I need to change to get there. And so it's a different model. I'm not saying that the mission equals vision plus action is bad. It's just an older model, and it doesn't necessarily create that bridge that you're talking about. So we can look at, are there different ways to create mission that can make that bridge and be able to get us there? And that's exactly the kind of stuff that we're working on within mission now. And I'm glad to share any of those kinds of materials with you. Was talking about the gold mining adventure coming up in June. That's the kind of stuff that we'll spend a lot of time with, really digging down, and what does this mean for me in my life now and going forward, and what am I going to do the rest of this year, and what am I going to do, and then how is my mission going to evolve once that longer term goal is reached, and that's where the life's purpose stuff comes in, the why am I here, and having a touch point for what is my essence that I'm bringing into the world, and then how does that choose to show up.
All right, James Post, your hands up, and then Paul.
Well, something just came to me a long time ago, a yoga teacher. He said that it was required that besides the practice of the yoga, you were required to go out into the world and do something, and just talking about this, I see that. So like I volunteered for a crisis line, and so every once in a while I'll do that. And I don't know, it's almost like my mission begins to get reflected back to me. I don't go there with the intention of I'm living my mission. It's just, I just take myself and put myself out in the world. And then, it happens almost not by thinking about it. But I guess what I'm saying is I have to go out in the world. I have to do something, take a step out,
Right. Yep. And what has happened to you in your life to this point has prepared you to do that.
Yeah. And
So
it's an
what's-
energetic thing. I change. I don't know what it is, but something happens to me, and I I begin to actually believe and see the result. I do affect people. That sometimes it comes back to me. Somebody will say something, but I do see the actual manifestation of this, of my mission, you know. Very
Nice.
subtle, very, you know, subjective. I can't explain to anybody, but, and it's, I don't know, and it has a big effect in a, just for me, a subjective way, but yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, I'm gonna add
Thank you,
two
George.
M's to make it three M's, and we can all take a bite of that. For me, it's the idea, how do I inspire men and inspire myself to lead a moral, meaningful life? A moral and a meaningful life. And I think that relates into mission.
Thank you.
Thank you, Owen.
Paul, you had a
Paul.
Yes, yes, I
Paul.
do. In our group, we have the, protocols of doing accountability. And then that involves doing a stretch. And usually it's just, in our case, it's usually a stretch. What are we going to do by next week? But that would be a good time to insert reiterating what the mission is. And is there any action or stretch you can do in terms of that mission for next week or going forward?
Yeah.
I think that'd be a good place to reemphasize mission and have men focus back on it and then
Exactly.
think about it
Well,
on a
it's
weekly basis.
like if the guy shows up and says my stretch is to drive by the gym 3 times this week, the response might be, how does that relate to your mission?
Not saying every stretch has to be exclusively about the mission, but it is a chance to reflect upon it and think about it again. And yeah.
I'll lead with that, Paul.
Any other questions or feedback? And welcome, Randy. I know you're in Australia or something, aren't you?
I am in Australia, and that meant that I got up at 4 a.m. here for my church's annual meeting and went back to bed, and it's a minor miracle that I'm awake now. I was thinking about Josh's comment a lot as others were sharing. And Josh, I wonder whether this might help. So whatever your mission is, and then add a sentence. To do that, I am, or I do, or some sort of, so for me, the way I would describe you is to do that, I am a teacher and leader, or teacher and designer. And I don't know if that helps, but should we experiment with a slightly broader description of mission?
I like that thrust towards making the action words like kind of identities that I hold, because I can check if I'm living up to that in a way that, yeah, my current mission, it doesn't resonate in that way. I'll vibe with that. Thanks, Randy.
Yeah, and I'd love some feedback on it later when I'm awake, and maybe we can turn it into some piece of a protocol. Right. I mean, I changed the way we do mission kind of ad hoc because I was at the last face-to-face, and I asked people who were checking in at the mission breakout, so check in with your missions, and the first guy didn't have a mission, and that's how I came up with the gift giving. And I do think grounding mission more in what we do than what our goals are is helpful. But what I heard from you, Josh, was that it wasn't totally helpful enough. So we can take it to a new level.
For sure. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Paul Brucker, your hand's up.
My hand should be down, or it should be thumbs up. Sorry, I didn't take it down.
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
Mike.
That's okay. No worries. I just want to make sure. Anybody else?
Just a quick request. Randy, I'm not able to copy the link for that presentation into the chat. Can you try copying that over?
Maybe I will try because my hostess has no email, no Wi-Fi, so I'm on my phone, but I will do my best.
Okay.
What presentation is it? Because I couldn't see it.
Was the November presentation that you did for iGroup Council?
Okay, I'll look for it. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to switch to schedule a little bit. Right now, we're going to go on a break, and actually, I would like to wrap things up. So before wrapping this up, I want to honor Tyrone Marsh. So Tyrone, last year, handed the chair over here, and he's completed his 1 year as past chair. So Tyrone will be exiting, so I want to honor Tyrone for all of his help and support and all of his work that he's done with iGroup Council. And you're not completely leaving, but you want to have a point in time where you're exiting the position. So Tyrone, you got any words of wisdom or anything you want to share? But I just want to take a moment and honor you.
Once upon a time, no. No. So I will say, what was it? January 2019 is when I became an iGroup coordinator. And I've been with this group ever since then. Even when I became an area steward, I was the area steward liaison title thing and still hung out with the iGroup folks. This is my home in MKP. And it means so much to have a group of guys to hang out with because I didn't have that when I was growing up. And I didn't trust men when I was growing up. Not at all. And so within MKP, I've learned to trust more men. And that, yes, the carpet work was trustful. So it's very much in alignment. When I came into the iGroup Council and the steering team with men thinking about what the meeting was going to look like and what the material was going to look like, holding that heart and the intelligence as well, I was like, what is this? Like, I found it. I found my people. So I check out wanting to also just thank folks like Jeremy Myers, Josh Walshman. Those two men were truly my mentors before I even knew what mentoring was when it came to my first couple of years in MKP, being an iGroup coordinator. And of course, Heisuku Mike Bain and Rick Brown, those are the men who answered the phone when I called up. And I am so excited about hearing about how we're moving forward with mission, because for me on my NWTA, my mission was my most important thing. And I still have my mission. I co-create a world of gratitude and introspection by holding space, being joyful and celebrating diversity. And it has changed my life, my children, how I interact with my colleagues, the jobs that I've picked, and the friends that I've decided no longer serve the purpose of being my friends now. Our missions have taken us in different directions. So I check out really grateful. And this is always going to be my home, so I'll keep popping up from time to time, knowing that my energy now is more in the intercultural competence and belonging space. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tyrone. Bless you. And please pop in. All right, man. Let's wrap up this summit. Guess we'll do a little early. So how should we do this? I don't really have a way. So let's just, I don't know, just a moment of silence. Look around. Thank you for being here. And I appreciate all of you.
I've got
Okay,
a,
man.
I've got a way to do it. I've got a way to do it.
Go for it.
I invite
All
every man, as you are able, to extend your arms out this way, all the way out, and to gather in between your outstretched arms everything that you took and gave. And we're going to bring it to a close by raising it up and clap your hands together and push it out into the world. We'll all go do something good. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh. All right, man. Have a good Sunday evening or Monday morning, Randy, whoever you are.
Blessings, guys.
Cheers.
Take care.
Turn off recording.
I couldn't find what you needed, Kevin.